What I've learned after releasing 333 episodes of the Big Stud Podcast. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Claudio, and I have hosted the Big Stud Podcast since 2019, late 2019. We released, literally, I checked it today, 333 released episodes of all different types, all different lengths, all different things that we've tested over the years to see what works and what doesn't. And so I'm gonna go through a couple different points that I get asked a lot with people that are, starting and or growing a podcast. First is, what equipment do I need? Microphones and lights and this and that and editing softwares. And I literally started with my cell phone. I have done, there are episodes on the Big Stud Podcast that's literally a voice note from my phone that I uploaded the audio and had a podcast. So don't overthink it, right? What you'll learn is you learn the best by doing, when it comes to most things, but podcast specifically is how you talk, how you interact. Are you doing interviews, monologues, co-hosts? What do you want to do? I think it comes in over time of analyzing what works for you and what works for your audience. But I would say don't wait till you have the perfect setup. Have decent microphone that literally any iPhone has. I've used the Blue Yeti mics. I've used Rode mics. Slightly different between, but there's no significance that I've seen from, if you're just starting, just do as little as possible to spend money on it from the beginning. I use Libsyn, LIBSYN.com. It stands for Liberated Syndication. It's the website that you post to that redistributes to all the other platforms as well. There are multiple types of podcast episode styles. So there's monologue where you're just talking by yourself. There's interview style where you're interviewing somebody, back and forth. There's co-host where you're kind of conversating back and forth. But even as simple as a Facebook Live that you did with some information, you can pull the audio and turn it into a podcast. One of the things I've learned specifically is podcast users use podcasts. Non-podcast users very rarely transition. So just getting access to the podcast audience, which is millions of people at this point, can be very beneficial to your brand, because there's a lot of people that'll choose podcasts over YouTube, just like there's people that choose YouTube over podcasts. From a content collection and absorption perspective, you want to capitalize on as many audiences as possible. So simply, what do you want to do? Do you want to do just talking by yourself? Do you want to interview other people? Do you want to be interviewed by other people, like a back and forth co-host style? So I started with a co-host with Ryan. Then I got into doing just interviews with other people. Then I added in Mike's Monday Motivation, which was just me on Monday mornings. Then I added in Ask Mike Anything with a co-host. And so I've tried a lot of different things. When it comes to monologues, it's really important that you set the audience up for why they're going to listen to the rest of the episode. What is the value they're going to get from that episode? Hey, and this, I'm going to cover this, I'm going to solve this, 3 things here, these things there. People want to know why they're going to invest their time in the remainder of the piece of content. I have found that monologues operate a little bit better shorter. So mine are typically 5 to 10 minutes when it's just me talking. Obviously, I've seen longer ones. The average view time on a 5 to 10 minute video for me right now is between 3 and 4 minutes, which is a pretty substantial percentage of an overall video for YouTube. So I don't see, and I would say, if you're going to be out there just talking by yourself, look at the types of videos you engage best with. Do you sit and watch a YouTube video for 30 minutes? Probably not. But will you watch for 4 to 6, or will you listen for 4 to 6 to get the information you need in a specific environment? I think so, for most people. So understand the attention span of your audience. But I think monologues where you're just speaking by yourself on a topic, 5 to 10 minutes is a really good length. For my interviews, they're a little bit longer because I want to give both sides of the conversation time to actually unpack the conversation, the storyline. So when it comes to interviews, I'm typically 40 to 50 minutes. I do that intentionally because for a lot of people who do 75 hard, they go on 45-minute walks, and I want to have a podcast that kind of fills that walking timeline. I did that from the beginning, and that's why I chose that time domain. It was because I know a lot of my audience does 75 hard. A lot of them listen to podcasts while they're doing their outdoor walks, and this allows them to listen to mine in the time domain. I also looked at it as a pretty common commute range, right? I don't think people enjoy getting interrupted mid-piece of content. So like 30 minutes, 40 minutes is a pretty common commute time for a lot of people. And maybe that's not true. That's just what I thought. And so that's why I chose that time domain for those. It's a good commute timeline to go between spots like job sites. My target audience for the most part are contractors. So it gives them time to go between job sites, driving home for the day, driving to the office for the day. 30 minutes is a pretty common commute time, 30 to 40 minutes. So that's why I chose that 45 minutes. Because I felt like that just hit a really good time domain for people that are commuting and interested in listening to content during that. But primarily the 45 minutes was built for people doing their 75 hard outdoor walk. Because I've been doing, I did 75 hard for the first time in 2019, and I just thought it was a good time domain. The Ask Mike Anything, we picked a specific number of questions. We do 3 questions every Friday that are brought in from the audience. And we've been averaging, 20 minutes-ish on that episode. It's quick, it's concise, it just jumps from one question to the next and gives both myself and Nate the ability to weigh in on the question or have our perspective or opinion shared. So my Mondays are 5 to 10 minutes, my Wednesdays are typically 40 to 50 minutes, and my Fridays are typically 20 to 25 minutes. And there's no real rhyme or reason. We get a pretty good listen rate, how long people listen through the whole episode. And I'm not the biggest podcast in the world. We're averaging about 10,000 downloads a month right now. So it's maybe above average, but it's not giant, but it grows every month. You can see the amount of downloads, unique downloads grows every month, which means the audience is growing and we're maintaining a lot of the existing audience. And that really just shows for me that it's growing in value over time because people want to keep coming back. So I don't, some people are gonna think I'm crazy for this, or I've gotten some kind of funny looks at this. Like, I don't monitor the analytics like every week. Once a month I'll go in just to check to see where we are for the month or the last couple months, but I don't check every episode to see like how many downloads did we get today. Like, I think that'd be an exhausting process and not worth it. But you have to do what you want to do in order to keep yourself engaged and happy with the content. But one of the biggest things I've done that I think, I'm actually not sure if it's good or bad. I've never actually listened to one of my podcasts. I put out a piece of content. I just know that I'm gonna do the best I can today, and the next one I'll try hard again, and it'll be better. And I've progressively gotten better over time just by doing it. Like, I've literally never watched one of my YouTube videos. I've never watched or listened to one of my podcasts. Every time I do one, I try to get a little bit better based on what I've learned, and it's gotten better. I think when people watch themselves, they tend to spend too much time thinking, or watch or listen. They spend a lot of time thinking about not sounding like or not looking like something, as opposed to just being themselves on camera. And being yourself on camera or on microphone for the podcast is the best way to connect with an audience. So my suggestion for podcasts would be just get started. Decide what type of podcast you want. Is it monologue? Is it interview? Is it co-host? And then take action. And then you can adjust later. Like, I had a co-host for 70 episodes before we even started our first outside interview. So it grew over time, but ultimately figure out what you want, take action quickly, minimize the investment in technology. Like, you don't need to go spend a couple $1,000s day one. Make sure that you like it, make sure you can keep the cadence, and then see how it grows over time, see how you enjoy it, and ultimately see if you can sustain it. Most people, I think the average podcast, lasts like 7 episodes, if I remember correctly. Cooper's eyebrows went up there. Like, I'm pretty sure the average podcast that's currently live, the average has 7 episodes. And so, like, I have 333, right? So I'm skewing the average there. But like, most people don't make it past the first couple. So my final suggestion, my final lesson learned is just outlast. Like, just continue to put it out no matter what. We've had up months, we've had down months, we've had great episodes, we've had terrible episodes, but we just continue to put out valuable content, and the audience has grown, which the podcast drives everything else. It drives the YouTube channel, it drives the Facebook group, it drives the client base. There's a lot of people who find me from either YouTube or the podcast, and then those drive other pieces of content, which allows them to engage with us even more. So don't be afraid to repurpose other stuff as audio for a podcast, but make sure it's intentional. Don't just make it like a Dropbox, there's no intentionality, but just maintain, just outlast the rest. And ultimately, you will be able to win fast and win often.